680's Richard Southern. Wow, Richard, you've decided to grace us with your presence back on City News.
I was at home on Friday and I saw you and Mike Apple, chumming it up. You're like, oh, Mike, I wish you could be here every day. And it's true what they say, I think, in broadcasting. You should never take a day off, or it might be your last day.
Just so you know, keeps you on your toes. That's all. That's all. Let's talk about someone else who's going to be on their toes, Uber, because there's a new ride-sharing service coming to town, and it's Lyft.
Yeah, so Lyft, very similar company to Uber, and Lyft is coming to Toronto. It's going to launch here by the end of the year. So both Lyft and Uber, they let you hail a car using your cell phone. Both charge by the kilometer and by the time elapsed. And the prices, they're actually pretty similar by all accounts at both companies. Uber is a much larger company. They've raised a lot more money. They're planning an IPO 2 years from now. Of course, there's been a lot of negative stories about Uber, so Lyft, you could argue, might have a better reputation. Big question is, what does Uber think about Lyft coming to Canada? Uber sending me a statement today, Uber Canada, and it reads, at Uber, we welcome competition that encourages the use of more transportation alternatives. More options can help reduce congestion and pollution as consumers increasingly make the switch from driving their own car to using shared mobility services. So Uber sounding pretty okay with this. Not the case from the taxi companies. I had a chance to talk to Christine Hubbard just off the phone with her. She's the operations manager at Beck Cabs, and she says she's worried about Lyft. She thinks Lyft is only coming to Toronto because Uber is not following the rules laid out by City Council.
We're welcoming Uber drivers to Beck, frankly, and I think that as people start to realize that those discounted fares don't exist anymore, and it costs the same amount of money, most cases, to take a taxi as it does to take Uber.
No, that's not true, Christine.
We're hearing that all the time.
We talked a couple of weeks ago, and you told me overall your Beck's business hadn't been too badly affected by Uber, right?
Yeah, we absolutely have grown year over year. Last year was the busiest year. This one will be the new busiest year.
So why are you so upset about Lyft coming in then?
I look at this from the perspective, not just from the taxi industry, very much so as a resident in the city who's raising kids here. My problem is that we've had, 8 sexual assault allegations against Uber drivers. These are the ones we know about. This is also to do with drivers who are pretending to be Uber drivers.
So there's never been a sexual assault involving a Bex or another cab driver?
Never said that there hasn't been, but I do think that it has increased the risk of that happening.
So Frances is obviously pretty concerned. I'm not sure if she's right or wrong about that particular issue, but the fact that they go there shows that the taxi company is obviously really worried about Lyft coming to Toronto.
Yeah, a little later on in the show, Richard, we're going to be speaking with an expert just to find out what the impact of Lyft would be on our Toronto commuters. When was the last time you used a payphone?
It's got to be years, I think. I'd be kind of grossed out using a payphone right now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't even know how much it costs. I don't even carry change, but apparently they make a little more money than we think.
It's 50 cents now. It's not a quarter anymore. There are still just over 57,000 payphones in Canada. That number, though, down 9,400 from 2015. The average phone makes $385 a year. That number, of course, down over the past couple of years. Payphones average about 2 calls per day. Overall, though, Canadian payphones made $22.2 million last year. So that's not an insignificant amount. Of course, the need for them not as great, with 86% of Canadians owning a mobile phone. Francis, the CRTC points out that payphones are still very important for those on low income, and they're important too in the event of an emergency.
Wow. One thing that Apple told us on Friday was this big shopping event in China over the weekend, and apparently it made some good money.
Yeah, so this is Singles Day. It's on Alibaba, the e-commerce giant in China. They do a 24-hour fire sale. Look at these numbers. $25.3 billion worth of merchandise sold. That's 3 times higher than Black Friday or Cyber Monday combined. 90% of the purchases there in China made via mobile phone. Smartphones and appliances were the top sellers. For instance, they did $95 million worth of air conditioners in just a 30-minute period. So, Francis, it really shows the Chinese consumer is, has money to spend, that they're really getting into the e-commerce business in a big way. And it shows really, as if we didn't know it already, that the future of retail certainly is going to be online.
Okay, how much money do people really have to spend? Because, airlines are unveiling their new first-class cabins. You've already showed us Singapore Airlines Emirates is next. So what does it look like?
Oh boy, this is something, and this is it here. So Emirates' new first-class cabin. It's a floor-to-ceiling door, so you have your own room. Each suite offers up to 40 feet of personal space. There's even a slat that goes down so the flight attendant, Francis, can bring you your food or your drink without opening the door, without having to look at you. The seat, isn't that great? It's kind of like prison. They just slide it right in.
Don't look at me. Just bring me my meal. Yes.
The seat goes to a zero-gravity position. We haven't seen that before. Of course, it folds into a full bed. For passengers in the center cabin, Emirates is introducing virtual windows that project the actual view from outside the plane. We haven't seen that before in airplanes. We have seen it in the cruise line business. And each suite has a 32-inch television, 2,500 channels of on-demand service. Of course, it doesn't come cheap. Emirates does fly in and out of Toronto 3 times a week. And generally speaking, a first-class ticket one way to Dubai is anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000 or more, Francis. So save your pennies.
So you're going to get me something for Christmas again, right? It can either be Singapore or Emirates. Richard, I'm not picky.
You're not picky. Okay, we'll work on that one.
Okay. Let's talk about KFC because, you know, the Twitter secret was cracked by someone, and now KFC is commissioning a painting to celebrate it.
A couple of weeks ago, a guy named Ed, he figured out that KFC only follows 11 people, 6 guys named Herb, and 5 Spice Girls, so 11 herbs and spices was pretty funny social media gimmick. And so to commemorate this, they commissioned this painting of Ed, and he's seen piggybacking Colonel Sanders with a drumstick in hand. Together, they appear to be on a grand outdoor adventure, and KFC sent him this picture. I had another picture commissioned, though, Francis. Take a look at this one.
Did you?
Look at that one. That's pretty good.
Oh, look at that.
Two guys who lived in Mississauga. And what about that one? I do so much KFC
that
stories.
One's better.
I needed a painting, too. So there you go.
You do. You do need your own painting.
Drumstick in hand.
No kidding. Thank you, Richard. Have a great night.
Thanks.